What is good, Spuds? This is your host, Jesse Whitedeer, of the Needless Potatoes Podcast. How's your Friday going? How you doing out there? Hopefully all of you are staying well and staying safe. My special guest today is a dear friend of mine. He is Taten Craig, everybody. Taten and I sit down and he shares his story about addiction, but most of all, recovery. And Taten sits down and details how he was able to go from addiction to the drug court program to graduating the program to the Oxford House to transitioning from the Oxford House to living on his own and his continued journey of recovery. And I think it's a wonderful thing. And if any of you are curious about recovery for yourself, a friend, a family member, I will post those links in the description. And hopefully you're able to use those resources to help those in need, including yourself. But a special announcement, everybody. On June the 3rd, DJ Bryant of Oberon and I sit down and we will read your questions that you send in. It's going to be an Ask Me Anything. So here's how you do it, though. You can message our Facebook page. You can message our Instagram page. Or you can send in an email to needlesspotatoespodcast@gmail.com with the hashtag AMA, and we'll read those questions on the podcast that drops June 5th. So we'll record on the 3rd, and it will come out the 5th. So if you want your question read, send it in to the Instagram page, Facebook page, Needless Potatoes Podcast on both, or you can email to needlesspotatoespodcast@gmail.com. And we'll read your questions. So anything you want to know from me or DJ, please send those in. But that's it for me, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, Taten, for sitting down and talking with me. You guys have a good one. You have a great weekend. We'll see you next time and even the time after that. Thank you. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Needless Potatoes Podcast with me, Jesse Whitedeer. That's me. My guest today is a very good friend of mine, very special guest. Today's a very special episode dealing with addiction and most importantly, recovery. My good buddy Taten, he knows all about recovery and coming from a very bad place to do something positive. So, Taten Craig, why don't you say something?
Hey, what's going on, man? I wouldn't say I know everything about recovery, but I've definitely learned a lot.
Oh yeah, for sure. You know, you've I guess you know more than me, or you would know more than So I mean, but you kind of know what it takes to go from addiction to kind of getting to a better place, a more positive place.
Yeah. It was definitely a hard road to get out of.
Well, let's just take it back to the beginning. And of course, anything you don't want to answer, you can always just let me know, and everything's good on my end. This is all just whatever you're comfortable with, man. So definitely don't want to put you in a weird position.
All right, it's all good.
But so let's start from the beginning. When did you first start? Did you go from like drinking alcohol into like drugs, or kind of take us to the beginning?
Well, I grew up in a pretty sheltered life. I was raised by my grandparents, went to church Sunday, Wednesday, all of that. Didn't really know much about drugs. And then I think I was like 12 or 13 when we moved from Happy Land to Bing. And that's when my grandparents really started just letting me go out with my friends, whenever. I mean, of course, we had the curfew and all this and that, but still, we got to the point where we called it ghost sleepovers. I would tell my grandparents I was going to somebody's house. They would tell them they're going to my house. And then we just go out and run around and do hood rat shit. And that's about the time I started smoking weed. And everything was chill and kosher with it. Didn't have any problems, wasn't getting any trouble, was still doing all right in school. And then I think I was like 14 or 15 the first time I tried pills and got hooked on those Lord tabs. And that was the worst 2 weeks of my life coming off those, man. Felt my body hurt, my bones hurt. It was hell. And then so I was still doing good at school, had a job, all that. And then I think it was my 10th grade year, my 10th or 11th grade year. Like I was basically failing all my classes except for my computer tech class. And so my buddy gave me an Adderall one day, and I took it that morning, and I had to go make up a geometry test on my lunch hour, and it was a Scantron test. I didn't study for it. My overall grade in geometry at the time was a 17, but I took that Scantron test and I aced it 100%. And so I called my grandma. I was like, "Hey, look, don't be mad at me. My buddy gave me an Adderall. I took it, and I aced this geometry test." And so we went to the doctor. I got put on Vyvanse, and that's when I started getting into the not so good side of drugs, because the doctor told us as we were leaving the office, he's like, "You don't have to worry about him getting in trouble because they don't have any street value." Well, hell, by the time I got to Santa Fe that night to work, I was making bank off of it. And
Mhm.
but I went through high school and all that, graduated, uh, had my first daughter, and everything was chill. Everything was going along. And then I don't know, I think I was about nine. Yeah, I was 19 the first time I got strung out. Well, let's back up. In 2015, 2012, I caught my first felony for selling weed, and they offered me a 7-year sentence in prison. And I was able. I told my lawyers, it's like, "Look, tell the DA I'll move out of state for however long he wants, and then I'll come back." And they're like, "All right." So they went for it. My plans to move fell through, so I just stayed down here and did my DOC probation, and that's when I started doing dope. And that's when everything went to shit.
Okay, so I mean, you were still pretty early when all of the, or not early, but you were still pretty young when all this stuff was going on. Whenever you started really getting into drug addiction,
Yeah, yeah.
what was it like? You said that you were having these kind of ghost sleepovers with a good friend of yours. You guys were lying to your parents, and then of course going out and uh, you know, as you said, hood rat shit.
Yeah.
Not doing anything positive. Um, what was it about all that? Was it just that you were young and sheltered and you didn't have any exposure to these things before, or was it just kind of stupidity? I guess.
Man, really, it was. Yeah, I would say that some of it had to do with living that sheltered life, growing up out in the country and having woods and stuff to roam around in when I'd get bored when I was a kid. To moving out to Bing, where I've got a neighbor that's 30 foot across the yard. But
Mhm.
being able to go out at night with my friends and stuff and get to see what they've been doing for a year or two more than I have. Really, I think what it was I was just trying to play catch up. Like, oh, all my other friends have been out here smoking weed and drinking and running the streets, you know. And at the time, I still I still hadn't learned that I don't have to prove myself to anyone.
Mhm.
So that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to hang out and fit in, and it backfired real quick. I mean, well,
Yeah,
I ended up fitting in with people, but it was just you know the wrong crowd.
yeah, the wrong kind of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, where do you think that came from? You wanting to fit in?
Well, like I grew up. like I said earlier, I was raised by my grandparents, you know, so I had them there. I would see my mom every now and then, you know. She lived in Little Rock, Arkansas at the time, so me and my grandpa would drive out there, you know, once or twice a month, stay a weekend. That's where I learned that I liked horse. I found out that I liked horses because it's what she did. But like we never had a mother son connection, you know. And
Hmm.
then I just recently well, no, maybe the month before last, just recently met my dad for the first time ever. And so I don't know. And actually, the drug court administrator Calvin, I sat down and had a meeting with him about it, and we talked about my past and stuff like that. And what he mentioned to me was that it seems like since my dad was never there, you know, and
Hmm.
growing up, me and my grandpa, our relationship was pretty rough. That like just nobody ever told me that, you know, like, hey dude, you're doing a good job. You know, there was none of that. It took my grandpa 6 months of me being sober before he told me he was proud of me. You
Hmm.
know, so I think that's what it was. I just wanted to, you know, be accepted, I guess, really, in a nutshell. So,
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, and I think with anything, I came from a fortunately, I came from a very stable, loving um, home, and both of my parents, I know I had both of them there, fortunately. But I think that's just something that a lot of young men go through, or a lot of young people rather, that kind of wanting to fit in, or you're not sure of yourself, because I was hanging around those kind of people, those kind of people that weren't doing any good, people that
yeah,
weren't doing any good for me, and I think I definitely. I definitely feel what you're saying. I empathize with what you're saying. Is trying to fit in. You want these people to like you, and I think for me, like I didn't really at that time, I didn't really like myself, so I
yeah,
wanted other people to like me. And I knew my parents loved me, sure, and
yeah,
like they did a great job loving me. But it's just you want to be liked. I think that's universal. People want to be liked, and it's when you're young and you don't know how to internalize that, or you don't know how to build self confidence and all these things. It's really hard, and I couldn't imagine doing that, in your position. So that's definitely something you learn young, but it's something that kind of empowers you once you learn how to get past it.
yeah, yeah. It really does. Like I know. It was. I was. I was 15, 16 when my oldest daughter's mom, Autumn, when she got pregnant. You know, and then I was just like, when that happened, I was like, oh shit, dude, like I got to get it together, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I did there for the most part. You know, I was just smoking weed, drinking every now and then and stuff. But I still had insurance and was still getting my Vyvanse prescription. So, and I think that's really where my addiction for meth came from. Because when I couldn't get those anymore, I was looking to self medicate, you know, and like
Mm-hmm.
I'd grown up and stuff around it, you know, like I'd never seen it in my face, like you know, my grandparents and all his friends, they were all respectful, and you know, and like anytime they'd show up and I had to handle some business like that, it was taken go outside and play or go inside and play your video games, and I would, you know, and then so like I knew the effects of it. I knew what it did to people. So I'd watch my uncles steal tools out of my grandpa's shop to get their fixed. And so for my whole life, I was like, I'm not going to do that, you know. And then I was at a house one day smoking some weed, and my buddy showed up, and they're all sitting around rolling a bowl, and he just hands me a quarter paper. And he's like, "Man, he's like, it's if you want to do it, it's yours. If not, just give it back." And yeah, I sat there for 2 minutes too long before I dumped it out and did it. And as soon as I snorted it, man, my hands started shaking, and then they stopped. And I looked at my buddy. I was like, dude, it's game over. I'm hooked. And I kind of had it under. I say I had it under. I've never had it under control, but I kind of had it under control at the time. Still working and stuff. And then after about 4 or 5 months of just snorting and smoking it, I started shooting up, and that's when I lost my job. I started bouncing from trap house to trap house, making multiple runs to the city a week. Just trying to keep money in my pocket. But all I was doing just enough to stay high and gamble, and that was it. And at the time, I was loving it. I was like, hell yeah, man, this is it. This is the dream. I got nothing to worry about. you know.
Oh yeah, for sure. When you're young and naive like that,
Yeah.
you think that's what success is, or you have this idea that, okay, well, these people I'm hanging around, they like me. I get to go out and have a good time, and I get to, really kind of impress all these people, and then I'm somebody, and it kind of you build up a false sense of security that way.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I can understand, man. I relate heavily to a lot of what you're saying. Even though we were raised differently, we came from different backgrounds. Definitely, that sticks with you. I think for me, there was a lot of there is a lot of unfortunately, there's a lot of alcohol and drug abuse in my family, on my mom's side of the family, and I have a lot of cousins that are alcoholics, or they're drug addicts, or they're in trouble, or and aunts and uncles, unfortunately, and it's really sad to see. I was much like you. I grew up around that, and I said, like, all right, that's not going to be me. And then yeah, and then a few years later, I get fired from Home Depot because I was drinking. I just want to go out and hang out with my friends, and I started experimenting with drinking with alcohol probably in high school, but I didn't really
Mhm.
full on get into it until I was like 18 out of high school. Well, it was my senior year, and then I kept that up until I was like 25. So about no, I take that back. Probably about 27. So about 3 years ago is when I finally just up and quit. Said, all right, this isn't for me. And I mean, in between that time, just with alcohol, I lost a job. I ruined friendships, ruined relationships. Just a whole plethora of bad decisions. And but for me, I just said to myself, like, I finally said, like, all right, like, this isn't doing me any good. So why am I drinking so much? Why am I trying to go out and impress these people? Why am I doing all these things? And once I was able to find out that, okay, well, I wasn't secure in myself. A lot of this comes from insecurities. I'm projecting these on people. I'm projecting all these negative emotions. Then I was like, oh, then it just like clicked. Like, oh, okay, of course. And then once it clicked on my head, I was like, I didn't need alcohol anymore. I didn't want to drink anymore. And
Yeah.
then, but man, there was a lot of times where, and of course, you experimenting with drugs and meth, that's a different world. I couldn't imagine. And I commend you for coming this far. I think if no one's told you recently, I certainly am proud as your friend to kind of see you this transition, because I've seen when you were in your drug addiction, and I've seen you now, and it seems like
You
it's
see me, but I'm questioning loyalty.
yeah. I'll if you don't mind, I'll tell that story real quick.
Yeah, go for it, man.
So it's kind of funny. So I was living out at the Hoppies trailer park, I think is what it's called. But me and Logan Kyle Wood of Oberon, we're living out there, and we were just and we would have parties and stuff like that. You know, we were just hanging out and everything. And I think I was going into town, or I forgot what I was doing, but I had known. I think you had been to our trailer a few times. Like
Yeah,
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 a few times. So, and I have no, and at that point, I think I knew you, but we weren't like real close. But I didn't know you. And
yeah,
then, yeah. So then I think I can't remember if I was driving and then I saw you, or if I seen you at the trailer park and you asked me for a ride. But either way, um, I think it was I think I'd seen you and you asked me for a ride. So you and another guy. And I
yeah,
said, yeah, sure. I'm going into town, no problem. And, I felt like, all right, I'll help Taten out, be a good friend. So, so I remember driving into town, and you were leaning against my like door, and you had your hand on you had your hands on your thighs, and you were wearing shorts, and the other guy was just like dead quiet, and he didn't say anything the whole car trip. So we're driving in town, and I think we got like past CTS, and you said something to the effect of you. No, we were getting closer to Staples was what it was, and you
yeah.
said something. I think we were talking a little bit before then, and then you just stopped, and then out of nowhere you said yeah, I seen a guy drinking a Coke driving a Pepsi truck, and I was like, okay. And then you said, what does that mean to you? You said what what do you think about that? What does that mean to you? And I was like, it means he's not loyal. And then I'll never forget this because you said you kind of laughed. Yeah, loyalty means a lot. You said, I think you said, yeah, loyalty is a funny word. Like a lot of people misuse that loyalty, and it was
Yeah.
weird because you were talking very like you were delivering a monologue in a movie. Like you said loyalty is a funny word. It's a lot of people misuse it. And you said, yeah, loyalty. You said, and then I'll never forget. You like had your hand in your pocket, and you were like, and you turned to me, and then you said, what does loyalty mean to you, Jesse? You said, loyalty. What does it mean to you? And I was like, well, it means a whole lot. Like, like if someone's not loyal, they're no good. And you were like, yeah, yeah, absolutely. You said, yeah, that's good that you're loyal. And you kind of like leaned in when you said it. And I was like, in my mind, I'm thinking like, all right, well, Hayden's obviously going to pull a knife and stab me. So like, uh, if he does that, then I'm wrecking us both, and we're all dying. So, but no, like I don't know why. And then I dropped you off. I think I forgot where you and your buddy, and then I didn't see you for like a really long time. And then the next time that I saw you was I think up at Sessions, or if it yeah. And then I seen you, and of course that's after you had gotten sober and after you had gotten clean, and then you were on the path to recovery and everything. And we had talked, and I brought up that story, and that will always, of course, that's when you were in a dark place. But that was kind of funny to me, just the way you were phrasing it.
Yeah, and I'll let you guys know that I vaguely remember bits and pieces of his story. Is that's how bad off I was.
No, it was just the best part. I think is like you said you like lean back against the seat, and you said, "What does loyalty mean to you, Jesse?" Loyalty. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I was like, I guess. And then, yeah, but no, you didn't threaten me, so that was good. You just kind
Yeah,
of get out of my car, and you were like, yeah, I don't have any money, and I was like, oh, that's cool. That was it. So, no, that was. It's all good though. I'm glad you didn't try to rob me or anything. So.
yeah. No, that was honestly like one thing I prided myself on was like I wasn't like to get my fix. I was hustling. I wasn't out stealing gas tanks off people's front porch. I wasn't car hopping. I wasn't stealing bicycles from kids and shit. Like I had plenty of shit stolen from me. So like
Mhm.
for an eye type shit. But there was a time where this guy, he, I'd been helping him for a while, setting him up with an ounce or two here and there, just helping him out, helping him stay on his feet and stuff. Him and his old lady, and we went up to the casino one night by Jack Box. I left my backpack that had my clothes, my laptop, my life, had my life in. Well, we're in there about 10, 15 minutes. And I came outside to get another pack of smokes out of my backpack, and their fucking car's gone. And they wouldn't answer my phones. They were giving me all this around shit. And so the one and only time I stole from them, I went in, saw him up here at the casino over by Laser Zone. I was like, all right, bet. So I mopped over to their house and Jimmy the door, found a bag and threw dirty Jordans, power tools, petty shit. Don't bite the hand that feeds you, man. And like I told you before, like the only three things I ask from anybody that I'm going to allow in my life is just loyalty, honesty, and just some respect. It ain't got to be a lot, just enough to know that I'm helping you out of kindness. You know.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And but like it was the point in time I was at in my life, the people I was around, the things I was doing, those three things meant jack shit. So, but like I said, like I was always straight up. If somebody fronted me some dope and I ran off, I'd come back and up to it. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. Here's a little bit to make up for it, or whatever. Because being brought up by my grandparents and that generation, and seeing how loyal and respectful and honest that my grandparents were with each other, and how everybody that came over to the house was to them and to me. That's what I was brought up on, was loyalty, honesty, and respect. And I do I may not be the best at it at most times, but I guarantee you I do my damnedest.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. And it's I think it's funny how you look back and you realize the values and the teachings that your parental figures, whether they're your parents or your grandparents or aunts and uncles or whoever, of what they instill inside you. And it's yeah, and it's weird how it manifests later on or how it comes out. My dad would always, or not always, but my dad would always tell me about footwork. You have to find the you find the problem and you find the solution and you figure out, okay, well, how can I get to the solution? What footwork, what steps do I need to take to get to the solution? So my dad always talks about a footwork. You have to do footwork. You have to do little steps at a time. You might not get everything done in a day, but eventually you'll get there if you want to be. And later on, I had learned that nothing happens unless you choose for it to happen. So if you want, for me, I wanted to stop drinking. So I put steps in motion, action in motion to actually stop, drinking. And if I never would have put forth the effort to do that and take the right steps and take that footwork, it never would have happened. I still would have been, I'm not sure. I don't want to think about it, but I want to be in a good position for that. So it's, so it's weird how all that time my dad was telling me that. And of course, like I understood what he was talking about, but certainly not to that level. And then later on, as I got older, it really clicked inside my head. So there was that. I remembered it was actually a night of I went to a bar here in Ada. I'm not gonna say their name because I want to throw them under the bus. So it wasn't their fault. But I had a heavy night of drinking, and then I think I had like walked home, or I forgot how I got home, but I was just kind of sitting there, like in my room, and then I was like, man, like I'm gonna go and smoke a cigarette. I'm gonna get some air, and I was like just sitting on my porch, and then that's when like everything hit me, and then that's when like those all those things my dad was talking to me about, all those things my mom was talking to me about, it all clicked at like one point, in one moment, and then I realized like, oh, what the heck, what the hell am I doing? Like, why am I basically throwing my life away, on something that like because I didn't even like drinking, and it's weird, but like I just did it because I'd done it for so long, and once I realized like, oh, go ahead.
Oh no, what I was saying is like, because for me, when I started doing dope, I was a weekend warrior,
Mm-hmm.
and then it just grew out of hand,
Oh yeah.
and because I know for me that the last, I want to say the last 3 months of my addiction, the last 3 months I was in active addiction. I was I was fucking miserable, man. I was staying over at a buddy's apartment, crashing out in his extra room with me and my now ex girlfriend. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but like I was noticing, like that's when I started finally admitting that I had a problem, because I was noticing that like if my grandpa would pull up with a pack of smokes and something to drink, I would have to either my dope stash or find a can that had some residue in it, squirt a little water on it, rinse it out, and do a shot to go outside and see him. Or even if I wanted to get more dope, I had to scrape a can and go across the hallway and get some more dope. Like I was like, dude, I'm not getting high anymore. I'm miserable 24/7. Like it's not fun. Like I need help. And so I would stop. I'd get about a week and a half, 2 weeks of not using under my belt, but still living in that apartment around it. And so that was it. It'd last about a week and a half, 2 weeks at a time. Then I'd be on another bender. And then finally, uh, I we got kicked out of that apartment. I moved to a buddy's house over on 17th. Been there for like 2 days. No dope. Coming down, aggravated, irritated. Me and my ex were me and my ex were fighting pretty bad, and one thing led to another. We were shoving each other around, uh, pushed her down a few times, and she pushed me into a wall and grabbed my neck and started going to town on the side of my face. And every time she'd hit me, I'd raise my hand, but I'd stop myself. And after about the fourth or fifth hit, I went to snatch her up, and I missed her shoulders and grabbed her throat. I was like, bitch, you gotta fucking stop. Threw her on the bed, sat down, and went to put a shoe on, and that's when Ada PD knocked on the door. And they took me to jail for domestic assault by strangulation. And I was just like, man, fuck, dude. I was like, this is the last thing I need right now. They'd
Mm-hmm.
already offered me. They had already offered me drug court 3 different times on my first 3 felonies, and I told them no. And I went to jail, and I was sitting in there for a couple of days before I went in front of the judge. And the first thing he asked me was like, "Do you want to run all your charges concurrent?" I was like, "For the love of God, please." Because at the time I was only aware that the highest sentence I had on my felonies was a 7-year sentence, and it was nonviolent. So I'd have been out in like fucking 2 years, if that. And then he's like, "All right, we'll run concurrent, and that's 20 years on a violent charge." I was like, "Shit, dude." It was like, I said, when I looked, I dropped my head and I looked over and I saw my grandpa sitting out in the audience. And his head was down and he was just shaking it. I was like, dude, I was like, I fucked up, man. This is it. But thankfully, there was a drug court representative there, And I was like, dude, I'll take it. I need help. I'm miserable. I've got nothing to show for this stuff except a track mark and a bad reputation. Like I missed out on 6 years of both of my daughter's lives because I was strung out, and that still eats at me to this day. I've got 1,078 days clean from meth, and like there's just still stuff from the past, like choices I made that still eat at me to this day, man. Like just because I'm sober doesn't mean I'm not in a constant battle to stay that way. Because I've got uh, anxiety, depression, and severe schizophrenia, and I'm pretty sure if I dug down deep enough, I'd probably find some PTSD in the mix. But so in my head, it's just a constant fight not to tear myself down when something minor happens, stuff like that, and it's a constant battle, man, and it really sucks right now because all the AA meetings are closed except for one that I know of, but like my home group is we're still closed because of this virus.
Mm-hmm.
And like it sucks not being able to go to a meeting because even when I went to a meeting, even if I didn't share, every time I left, I was in a better spot, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so and I've been struggling with some heavy stuff these past couple weeks, honestly. Uh, I came close. I'm not even gonna bullshit y'all. I came close to falling off the wagon, man. Uh, I had some feelings come up that I hadn't dealt with in 8 years, and I just went about the wrong way. I just picked up a bottle and started drinking, and after a couple days of steady hard drinking, I started talking to the wrong people. But thankfully, I want to give a shout out to this guy, Clay Cooper, my brother. Man, he usually never answers the fucking phone when I call, but for some reason that night when I called him, he picked up on the second ring and he drove all the way down here from Edmond, took me back up there with him to dry out and regroup. And I'm grateful for that for him because if not, man, we wouldn't be doing this. We wouldn't be doing this right now. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's all about what what helps keep me grounded. Outside of I've fought way too hard to get to this spot to throw it all away, and the fact
Mm-hmm.
that I earned my OG status in my addiction, and my kids is my friends, man. I've got friends back from before the meth addiction, that like that are important in my life. Like they've helped me a lot, and like David Winchester and Casey Howard are two of them, and our sad boy Garrett. They've helped me out a lot here these past few days, and that's what it's about, man. Is people, places, and things. I grew up my whole life here. I can't. There's places that I go on the daily and still see people in high positions that I used to sell to and stuff. And so I had to learn those first 2.5 years of sobriety how to live in a town where I've always gotten high at.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, I had that thumb of drug court over my head to make it easier for me to stay in line. But I graduated the end of January, and I've been doing good up until just a couple weeks ago, man. But like I said, I'm still doing it. I'm still
Mm-hmm.
fighting. Like it's a tough battle, man. It doesn't just end once you get some sobriety under your belt. Like you got to continue to, like you said, you got to continue to do the fucking footwork to
Mm-hmm.
to stay sober. You know.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, and not to interrupt, but another thing that I constantly tell myself, or would tell myself back then, and anytime anything happens, is I when I was younger, I watched that movie, and I'm sure a lot of people did, the movie The Iron Giant with
Yeah.
what was it, Vin Diesel in it, and there's a line in there where not to spoil alert everybody, but there's a part where the giant is going to save the town from this missile or this rocket. So he's about to fly up, and he is flying up, and then he recalls a time where Hogarth talks to him, and Hogarth tells him, "You are who you choose to be." And then
Yep.
so uh, later on, like as I was trying to figure things out mentally and I was working on my mental health, that always would ring in my head. You are who you choose to be.
Yeah.
And so it's weird how inspiration is weird and funny like that. And that you don't pick up on things until later on. At least I didn't. So later on, as I got older, I realized like, oh, that cartoon is right. Hogarth from this animated movie is right. You are who you choose to be. And I realized, okay, well, I can choose to be positive. I can choose to be a good friend. I can choose to be a good person. I can choose all of these things. And it's up to me to choose those.
Yeah.
And as much as my parents love me and my family and friends, absolutely having a great support system is beneficial to anything, like you just said. But it ultimately came down to me. So I had to make those choices, and I'm so glad that I did. But anytime anything's going on, or I get low or hit those points, I always remember, oh, I am who I choose to be.
Yeah.
And so that would be, anyone out there that's listening, that's what helped me, anyways.
Yeah.
Of course, some things just aren't that easy. Some things are a lot more tougher, than being addicted to alcohol and things like that. Certainly, I could imagine being, on meth and things like that. That's just that's a whole new world to me. But again, like I even commend you even more for coming from that point. You know what I mean? From getting to where there, getting to there to where you are now. Was there, and you mentioned, you told the story about how you and your girlfriend and things got physical and you went to jail. Was that the point in your addiction that you said, like, man, I need to, like, it clicked? Like, then you went and got sober. You said that you talked to your friend at the drug court representative. And was it that point right there that it just, everything turned around?
I mean, like, it didn't happen overnight. Like me and her had fought. Fuck, Callan. Meth made me a fucking monster, and we fought countless times, throwing stuff at each other, breaking dishes, stuff like that. But that fight was the worst,
Mm-hmm.
and I beat myself up constantly about it, even though it's in the past. What's done is done. It's there. It's already, can't change it. But I beat myself up for it. I still haven't been able to forgive myself for it because I wasn't fucking brought up that way. Not once did I
Mm-hmm.
ever. My grandpa raised his hand to my grandpa. The most he ever do is maybe get a stern voice, That was
Mm-hmm.
it. And then here I am acting like this fucking shit. Like, it's like, man, look, I've got to, I can't do this. That's it. Like, I'm tired. I give up. I'm throwing in the towel. Like, something's got to change. And then I signed into drug court May 26th of 2017, weighing 154 pounds, soaking wet, hair down to my shoulders, fucking bad attitude, thought I was hot shit, like, yeah, I can do this shit on my own. And I quickly realized that I could not do it by myself. It's a five-phase, as I'm sure as most of the listeners know, it's a five-phase program. And I didn't even make it out of phase one without getting threatened to get sent off to the chicken farm because I wouldn't find a job. I kept trying to find ways to beat the system. And
Mm-hmm.
I would beat it for a little while here, and then something would come up. I'm like, oh shit, now I got to think of another lie. And eventually, like, it got to the point when Calvin told me that if I didn't have a job by the time I faced up on September 22nd of 2017, I would be that day on my way up to Tahlequah to the Dark Foundation. And I was like, man, shit. So I got home that night, and I was outside smoking a cigarette before I went to bed. And I just looked up at the sky, and like they talk about having a higher power, a God of your understanding, and you can call it whatever you want. I used to call it a higher intellectual being. It's whatever, something that's got more power than you. And anyway, I just started praying, man. I prayed for strength to get through it, for just for help. I reached out for help to a higher power, and then I got a phone call the day I was supposed to phase up in drug court from one of the hotels here in town, saying, "Look, come in tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. and you got a job." And I was like, "Bet." So I kept praying. I kept praying to the strength just to do what I needed to do to get through the program. And it worked, and it was helping. And then, then I kind of fell off there for a minute and was just doing my own thing, and started beating the system. I was taking kratom, and I got caught for that. I was just like, oh, yeah, I did it, and almost got into some serious trouble for that, but it worked out. It didn't work out good, but it worked out better than what it could have ended up in. And
Oh, for sure.
It was about, I think it was phase. Yeah, it was when I went from phase 3 to phase 4, because in phase 3 I got complacent. I quit participating in our groups at treatment. I quit engaging and stuff like that. And Calvin pulled me in the office one day. He's like, "Look, dude, what the fuck?" I don't know, man. He's like, phase 3 is a 3-month phase, and you've been in it for 5.5. I don't know. And he just laid it out. I was like, okay, and I got back on it. That's a big thing, big downfall for a lot of people is complacency, man. Like I've seen it happen to a lot of them, and so that's another thing that I try and work on. I try to to keep myself from falling into a daily what's the word I'm looking for, repetitive routine, like. Because I just don't want to fall into it. I want to be able to, be like, okay, I got to do this, and this, and keep myself from sitting at home all day, isolating, and in the end, relapsing,
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a constant struggle, man. But yeah, it was when I went to phase 4 is when it really clicked that, what, I took the time to look back. At that point, when I went to phase 4, I had a way better job than at that hotel, and I had a vehicle, I had an apartment. I was seeing my kids all the time. I was like, dude, I don't want to lose this. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I know for a fact that I've got another fucking bender in me, but do I have another recovery in me? Am I gonna come back from it? And I know, and I can almost guarantee you that I won't. If it ever happens, like, but yeah, like, and now, I mean, I've got a great support group. Like I said, I got 1,078 days clean. I mean, I smoke weed, but I'm out there being a productive member of society. I'm not strung out. I'm not, going around fucking just throwing my life away,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. You saw what wasn't working, and now you're working on yourself, but mainly you're working not to get back to that point. Kind of what you were saying about complacency, about being stuck in that same loop. You were able to get out of that. What is, besides your friend Clay and maybe Casey, Garrett, and David? What else are some things that help you stay
Man,
out of
really,
that, not go back to addiction?
uh, really, man, it's a big part of it's accountability, man. It's some of the friends I've made, Arlen and Jason that I met in drug court, Josh, a couple other people, like just having that accountability, man. Like we're all a close knit group of friends that have been through the same thing, and we're fighting to 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 get better, you know. And there's that, and then I mean I've got respect for a lot of people around town, like that are around town, that mean something to the town, and having people like that, I used to see you walking down Main Street all skinny and cut off shirts, arms flailing in the air, walking without a care. Like see you now, like it's kind of pressures me when people tell me, like, I'm glad to see people that were bad doing good in the community, because then if I go back out and relapse, then I basically prove them right in a way that once a junkie, always a junkie.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't like
Mm-hmm.
I don't to disappoint people. I don't like I just want people to chill, really, in a nutshell. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, when it comes to, like, if I do something and I let somebody down, not only is that way of me letting them down, I mean, the voices in my head and all that, they instantly start belittling me, tearing me down, and it's a character defect of mine. Like, I've been working hard to catch it. Like, when something like that happens, to catch it, like, all right, dude, look, shit happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's happened. Let's find a solution and get to it. But
Oh, absolutely.
there are times where I don't catch it in time, and then for the next like hour and a half, it's a constant battle inside my head to get quiet, to get peace and quiet inside my head, and convince myself that, dude, like, it happened, let it go,
Mm-hmm.
and so that makes it a lot more difficult at staying sober, because when I was spun out, I mean, yeah, the meth did no good to my fucking schizophrenia. But then it was just like I didn't care, dude. I was high, so I just let the voices run away, and I would just do my thing, pilfer my room for 8 hours and not get anywhere, or whatever. But now that I've got feelings back and a clear head, like it's tough.
Oh, for sure. Once you kind of realized the mistakes you made, and I think the toughest part is other people might forgive you, but it's trying to forgive yourself.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, taking accountability and trying to forgive yourself, is that's definitely a struggle. I think that's a struggle for anybody, not just people going through are going through recovery. It's anyone, trying to be accountable, be mature, do right by people, but also not beat up on yourself, because you look back on those things and you're like, oh man, I shouldn't have done that, and I shouldn't have said that, and oh, I can't believe I was like that, and then it's tough. It really is. Is there any kind of, other than the 12-step program, or not 12-step program, other than the program that you're a part of, what other programs and resources are out there for people?
Man, when I think I was halfway through phase 2, and I moved to the men's Oxford house. here in town. And being a part of that, man, that helped a lot. That, being a part of a house, having a role in that house, whether it's you do the dishes this night of the week, or vacuum the living room this night of the week, or being the president, or being what was it called, the person that comes up with ideas on how to raise money for the house and for the community and stuff like that. Like being a part of that kept me grounded. I lived there for almost a year, and that kept me grounded. I was like, if I relapse, not only am I going to go to do 85% of 20 years in prison, which is I think 16 or 17 years, 18 maybe, that I'm gonna be without a place to live. They're going to boot me out, and I just didn't want that, man, because at the time when I was living there, it was all drug court guys and maybe two other guys that just gotten out of rehab. But we clicked up. We were good together. It kept me grounded. We were always holding each other accountable, and so that worked out a lot. And then just getting involved in the meetings, man. My home group, I'm a key holder there. The head chairperson, paper signer, and like having that responsibility, that keeps me grounded. Like, you know what? If I go out and stick a needle in my arm again, I'm not going to be here. So these people can come and have a place to sit down, talk about their problems without judgment, and just have a fellowship of like-minded people that are all trying to get the same spot. And like I said, not being able to go there, be around those people, it's starting to take a toll. It's chipping away at me slowly. But like I said, I've got a great support group, great friends, and that's mainly what it is for me. Is just having the accountability of some of my closest friends that I consider family, that I would do anything for, having them close to me and having a close relationship with them, because I know if I let them down, then I don't want to do that. It's another thing that keeps me grounded. And then getting to see my oldest daughter, both my daughters, getting to see both my daughters, and having the freedom to, if I want to get up at 2 a.m. and go for a random drive, I can do that. If I relapse, I'm going to do it all. I'm not going to have to take a random 2 a.m. drive. I'm not going to have any freedom. I'll be locked down again and slowly plunging my way to an exploded heart.
Absolutely, man, for sure. And this kind of, as we wrap up here, what's some advice, or what are some programs people should check out that are maybe have a loved one struggling with addiction, or that are addiction themselves?
Man, there's a meeting in town specifically for friends, family members, and loved ones of people that are in addiction. Where was it? It's on. Well, I don't know that it used to be on Friday nights. I'm gonna say over at Church on Broadway. It was Al-Anon. If you've got a loved one going through that, check that out, because it's more directed on how to deal with it and cope with it and stuff. And also, man, if you need help, if you're in a situation and you want to get sober, check out ABHC over by Mama T's and Apple Markets, Addiction Behavioral Health Center. That's where I did my treatment at, man. And they got good counselors there. They're laid back, chill. They've all of them have been through addiction. They went through it and then got into counseling, which I've thought about doing some stuff like that before, but I haven't done the footwork to start it. But Yeah, man, just check that out. There's plenty of meetings around here. If you need help, man, like reach out, talk to people. Like don't do what I did and keep that shit bottled inside, man. Like I understand we've all got our demons and we all want to keep them hid, but you got to face them at some point. So if what you need to do is reach out to someone, just be like, hey, dude, look, I'm struggling. You know, uh, you can reach out to me if you want. Shoot me a private message, and I'll do what I can. You know, like I said, I'm going through my own shit. Well, another one of my character defects is putting everybody else in front of me. So I'll do what I can to help and point you in the right directions where to get help from. But it's a hard thing to do, man. I get it. It's a hard thing to ask people, even people you know, man. For me anyway, to ask for help. You know, and like if I hadn't have really reached out and asked for help, then I'd either be in prison or dead right now with a needle in my arm. So I'm grateful. That day I got arrested. It was May 9th, 2017, man, and it was more of a rescue than it was a jail sentence. You know, it's what I needed to get my shit out to get my shit together, man.
Oh, for sure, man. It changed your life. It got you to where you are today.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, man, I fought way too hard to get this far and go backwards. Like I want to stay where I'm at and keep going. And so,
Hell yeah, man. Absolutely. Well, yeah. So, hey, man, I really appreciate you sitting down and sharing your story. I know that it's extremely personal, and but I appreciate you doing this. One of the reasons, I wanted to call you up and have you on today is, knowing you personally and seeing you go from, being that skinny, sleeveless shirt wearing, guy to where you are now is definitely inspirational. It's definitely something that you should be proud of. That you were able to transition from one bad situation to a good situation, and it's definitely very commendable. So absolutely.
yeah, I'm thanks for having me on, man. Like I said, I want to help people in addiction. I made it out. For me when I was in addiction, you can ask a lot of people. I was either 120% dedicated or asleep. Like
Mm-hmm.
there was no midpoint. And for me to be able to get out of it, like I'll help people get out of it, but I won't help them unless they want to help themselves. Like
Mm-hmm.
all the time, I've seen people that say, I want help, I want this, I want that, I want to get out, I want a normal life, and then they don't show any effort to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh well, I'm waiting on it. They keep coming up with excuses, man. No, you gotta. If you absolutely want it, you'll make the moves to get it.
Absolutely. It's all about accountability.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. All right. Well, let's end on a good note. But I know that you're a big fan of Slayer as well as I am. What's your favorite Slayer album?
Ooh, man. The first album I heard by Slayer was South Side of Heaven.
Okay,
Was the
good
first
one.
one. And man, I don't. That's a tough one. I like a lot of their older shit. My favorite song by them would probably have to be "Dead Skin Mask" or "Bloodline."
That okay. All right. Yeah, those are both No, those are both excellent. I think for me, the very first time I ever heard them, I was watching. Uh, I think it was my sister, or it might have been an aunt or somebody. Somebody had Dracula 2000, and I was at my grandparents' house, and me and a few of my cousins were watching it. Well, everybody had like kind of passed out, or they were about to pass out. And we were all like 10, 11. We were all kids.
Yeah.
So I remembered that song Bloodline came on, and then on the DVD it had the Bloodline music video on there. So I thought like, yeah, this sounds pretty cool. Like I like the intro, and I was like 11 or whatever, and I went back and then I watched the music video, and I thought like I was very taken back by it because at that time I was very big into the Mormon Church, and but that kind of stuck with me, and then I tell this story a lot, but when I was 16, my older brother, my oldest brother, Jameson, he gave me a copy of Appetite for Destruction by GNR.
Yeah.
And man, from there, that just that just set me down this path of heavy metal, and I got into hair metal, and then I got back into Slayer through Disciple, and I remembered I had bought God Hates Us All at Hastings, and man, yeah, I yeah, dude, I fell in love. Disciple, Bloodline, and then I think God Send Death, and
Yeah.
yeah, so all of those, man, and then I just got deep into it, and I've been a fan ever since. So
Yeah. The first metal album I ever bought, I shit you not, I was what, like 9 years old? And I was walking through electronics at Walmart, checking out CDs and stuff, because at the time, the only music I had been exposed to was like Merle Haggard, Sammy Davis, Conway Twitty. And then the stuff that I heard at the church I was going to, it used to be called U-Turn. Now I think it's the
Mhm.
Refuge, but like KJ52, Toby Mac, Pillar, stuff like that. Well, I'm walking through the CD aisle at Walmart, right? I'm just checking out. I see this one. It's got flames on it. It's got a dude jumping through the flames. And so I'm like, all right, yeah, I'll buy this. I'll buy this CD. So I bought it with what little money I had. Got home and threw the CD player, turned it on, and the first fucking note is just a blood curdling fucking scream from Phil Anselmo. And it was Reinventing the Steel by Pantera. And dude,
Oh, okay.
by the time I finished that album, anytime I was in town, I was like, look, Walmart or Hastings, and I was going through, and that's what sparked it, man. Was Reinventing the Steel was my love, turned my love to metal. And then a couple years later, MTV's still a big thing. They're still playing fucking music videos and shit, And I'm watching, I see this deal called Headbangers Ball one Saturday night, and I click on it, and it just come on, and the first music video I play is Entombment of a Machine by Job for a Cowboy, and I was just like, fuck yeah.
Oh yeah, no, that's a good one. That man, those are yeah. I'm not a big fan of Pantera, but
Mm-hmm.
what's that?
What'd you say?
Oh, yeah, I'm just not a big fan of Pantera, but there's a few songs I like. I always give Casey always gives me a hard time for not liking them, but
I
there's
mean,
a few
they are
there's
the greats.
there's some good ones. Yeah, I mean, there's some good songs.
Yeah,
I always liked Dimebag Darrell as a guitarist. I mean, I thought
yeah,
he did excellent in Pantera, Damage Plan, anything he was in. I was always a fan of his guitars. So,
yeah.
but now, man, I have you ever you've seen Slayer? I guess a few times, right?
That's a negative, bud.
Oh, you never seen him? Okay.
Never seen Slayer, man. I
Oh,
had a chance to go see them. They played I believe it was Mayhem Fest a few years ago. It was Slayer, Megadeth, and yeah, it was 2000. It was 2011 because the show was on the day that my daughter was supposed to be born. naturally, you know. So I was like, well, fuck, man, you know. And my buddy already had tickets for us. I was like, man, look, if we go to this show and she goes into labor, I'm in deep fucking shit.
Yeah.
So we ended up not going to the show. But yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of bands come through town. Like I've had multiple opportunities to see Clutch, and the last time I was going to go see him, I strung out, fucking got high, and missed my ride to the city.
Mm-hmm.
But thankfully, man, Dog Fashion fucking Disco, I've been able to see them multiple times.
Oh yeah, you're actually friends with those guys, right?
Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Acquaintances. Well, still, hey, you're doing better than me. I seen Slayer at the Zoo Amphitheater here in about a year or so ago with my oldest brother, and it was when they was one of their final tours, or their final tour rather, and I have a back patch of Jeff Henneman on the back of my jean vest, so I held it up, and Gary Holt threw a pick at me, and then Tom Marea, Tom, he did the horns at me, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, I was like, well, I finally made it.
Yeah, an experience like that for me, man. Me, Casey, and David went to see Goat Whore, and one of the greatest things about Goat Whore is not only their music, but their guitarist, Sammy Duet of Acid Bath, one of the greatest sludge Louisiana metal.
Yes. Oh yeah, hell yeah.
And then we got there, went to the show, got to hang out with Sammy and Ben. I got a Acid Bath tattoo of their Demos album cover on my leg, and I showed it to him. He's like, dude, yeah, I'll sign it. So I was like, going to put my leg up on the stage. So he would just, before I could even lift my leg up, he's already down on his hands and knees autographing my tattoo. And I was just like, holy shit.
That's awesome, dude. When the kite strings pop is that's a masterpiece, man. That is a fucking excellent album.
Dude, my favorite song off the album is the first song, The Blue. And there's a lyric in it that says, I have fallen deep in love with the sky. And bro, like every time I hear that, like goosebumps just crawl down my arm. It's
well,
such
you okay.
As far as that song, The Blue, man, it's greasy, man. It's fucking great.
I first heard them. I heard Cass Eats Cockroaches through. I was burning a CD, and then I was just looking through metal, and I found that, and I was like, what's this? And I checked that out, and I was like, fuck, man, this is for me. And actually, it's funny because through Acid Bath, I discovered Death because there was because somebody on one of those file streaming sites, they mislabeled it, and they mislabeled spiritual healing, but they put it under Acid Bath, not Death. So that was the first time I ever heard Death, was through their album Spiritual Healing, and I was in love with them. They're an excellent band. I mean, all those guys really. Acid Bath, Death, Slayer.
That fucking so some more bands from back in that day that I listened to. Fucking I Hate God, Crowbar. Fucking throw this random one in there. Snot, bro. I haven't heard Snot since I saw them in Mudvayne in Tulsa years ago, and they just popped up on my Spotify the other day, and I was like, dude, what the fuck happened to these guys?
Oh, absolutely, man. Awesome. Well, hey, man, it's been great talking with you, Taten. I always enjoy anytime I get to sit down and hang out with you and talk with you. Hopefully when all this stuff clears up, we can get together and hang out sometime.
Hell yeah, man. I appreciate you having me on here, man. And it's been real.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Is there anything you want to plug right now? Is there a Facebook page of any of the recovery programs or anything?
Uh, man, really, I give a shout out to all the scrows and chicks of the Riders of Scrohon on Facebook. They've been keeping me well distracted.
Okay.
All right, man.
Hell yeah, man. All right. Well, once again, everybody, you can listen to this podcast, this episode, and all the other episodes on Spotify, Breaker, uh, Overcast, YouTube, Podcast Addict, everywhere but Apple. You can follow us on Instagram at the Needless Potatoes Podcast. You can like us on Facebook. We appreciate all of you. And Taten, once again, thank you so much, brother, for doing this. You're great, and I really hoped. I really think that your story helps some people today. I really do.
Well, I hope it did too, man. Because, like I said, it's all about accountability and having a strong support group behind you to really help you keep going.
Hell yeah! And listen to some groovy bands out there. Check out Slayer. Check it out,
Yeah.
Sebastian. Do
That's
that.
about agoraphobic nosebleed, dog fashion disco.
Yeah, there you go. All right, man. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to end it here. But I'll talk to you later, brother.
All right, bro.